Welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today. You know, we've heard it before. A 13-year-old is pregnant. How many times have we heard this? But we haven't heard this before, and it's what we're about to hear today. This teen's mother allegedly did something to her and her unborn child. You're going to find out what it was today. This story was featured in 17 magazine. I want you to take a look at this. Nakita seemed like an average 13-year-old girl, but behind her smiling face, there was a dark secret. At a time when most teenage girls are thinking about midterms and first kisses, Nakita was dealing with grown-up issues.
When I started drinking when I was about 12 years old, I would go out with friends and we'd party until about 6, 7 o'clock in the morning. When I was 13, I met my 20-year-old boyfriend. About 2 weeks after we were together, we started sleeping together, and I got pregnant.
Nakita confided in the only person she trusted, her mother, but that trust would be broken.
My mom got extremely mad when she found out I was pregnant. When she finally got calmed down enough to talk to me, she told me that we were going to have to find a way to deal with this. She didn't tell me how she planned to deal with it, but from the tone of voice she had and how mad she was, I kind of knew she didn't want me to keep it.
Nakita says her mother forced her to hide her pregnancy for 6 months, and then she induced a painful early delivery at home. The horrific details of her painful delivery and what happened to her baby next will haunt Nakita forever. Please welcome Nakita to the show. And your mom was working, correct?
Yes.
But she never seemed to pay the bills. Is that right?
No.
So explain this. So there were times that you guys lived in, and you moved how many times? Countless number of times between the time you were 2 and 10, right?
Yeah.
There were times when there was no electricity in the house?
Yes.
No food in the house?
Yeah.
Yeah? Why don't you tell us about the night, I guess you must have been, what, 5 years old? You guys were living in a house, and you were in a house that didn't have any electricity, just had a wood-burning stove. Is that correct? Right back then?
When it caught on fire?
Yeah, when it caught on fire.
It had electricity at that point, but it had been off several times in that house. I was about 5 years old and had my best friend staying over that night. And about 2 o'clock in the morning, my mother woke me up and told me the house was on fire. And she told me to get dressed and to ride my bicycle down to the neighbor's house. So they heard me knocking on the door. And he brought me in, called 911, and brought me back up to the house while we waited for the fire department to get there. And half of our house ended up being useless. We couldn't live in it because it burned so bad. But
and the water damage and all that kind of stuff. So you guys ended up having to, what, stay at a friend's house for about a week?
I know, we stayed at a friend's house for a day or so, and then we came back to the house.
And moved back into this house that was now half burned out?
Yes.
And how long did you live in that house that way?
Almost a year or...
No electricity, no running water. As soon as your brother moved out, your mom starts telling stories about your dad, correct?
Yeah.
And told you what about him?
Then he was abusive and had a horrible temper and would beat her all the time when they were married.
And you never remember that because you were too young. So you ended up being brainwashed into thinking your dad was some sort of devil.
Yes.
And you didn't want to go with him. Your mom wants to keep you, so she decides the way to keep you is to just let Nikki do whatever she wants, right?
Yes.
So you started drinking at what age?
About 12.
About 12.
Yes.
Staying out till 6, 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
And did she ever, how about going to school? Were you going to school?
Sometimes. She didn't make me go, and when she insists on me going, I'd sometimes say, well, if you let me stay home, I'll do this, because I'd gotten out of the rhythm of going to school. Before then, I was on the honor roll, always got student of the month, but when she started letting me, not making me go to school, I got out of the rhythm of wanting to go to school, so.
So drugs, drinking, sex, whatever you wanted to do, you could do. With no consequences from her. Take a break, we'll be back right after that.
like the glance from the kit she had. And while she was cutting the cord, he opened his eyes and he looked up at me